This call. I guess I'm muted. Okay, so welcome. Welcome to the July Best Practices call. This call is being recorded, so this can be shared. We're sharing on a YouTube channel. I share out the link of the recorded call with the invitation to the next month's call, and we post that on a private YouTube channel for the Heritage Area program. So welcome, and we're going to get started. Welcome Dan from Upper Housatonic National Heritage Area, and
Yay.
hear more about their National Heritage Area Pollinator Partnership. Go ahead, Dan, take it away.
All right, thanks. Hey, everybody. So we created a, our Operation Pollination here in the Upper Housatonic Valley, and modeled very closely on what Chris Stein and company have created in the in the Midwest region, and that's sort of a pollinator pledge that gets partner organizations on board with whatever it is they feel they can get done in the interest of pollinator protections. So we took it a step further and started working with some of the nearby municipalities, some of our partner organizations, and et cetera. And it happened to be in around the same time that Great Barrington, one of our towns, had worked with the Conway School. It's a graduate school for landscape design, and they this was just happening coincidentally, and I didn't even realize it, but they were creating a municipal pollinator action plan for the town of Great Barrington. And so I'm just throwing this up on the screen as sort of a point of interest. But if you have a pollinator plan in motion, and you're thinking about pitching some activities to one or more of your townships or municipalities, you might want to take a look at this, because I think they did an excellent job with it. And I'm sorry to say I didn't have a hand in doing that excellent job with it, but it did come out really well. And basically these grad students went into the town of Great Barrington and sort of helped piece together parts of the pie that would make a pollinator's journey through town much easier and make the town much more friendly. And in this plan here, they pitched a bunch of ideas about how the town and the businesses and the nonprofits and the town departments themselves, for instance, road crew, parks and rec, etc., might get together and change some of the stuff that they do on a regular basis, and all in the interest of creating a cohesive pollinator protection plan for the town. And so if you're interested, you can find it on our website and download it. It's a PDF, 91 pages. But I just want to throw that out because now Great Barrington is obviously one of our partner organizations, the municipality. So here is our, here's our website, HousatonicheRitage.org, and on it we have our Operation Pollination page. And here you'll see a lot of the stuff that you may be familiar with if you've heard about pollinator protections and what Chris Stein has been doing with his pollinator pledge. So we went a step further with that. We digitize that so that you can now fill it out online, and you can download it, fill it out, send it in if you want to do that, but you can also fill out a Google form online and submit it directly to us. And again, it's very simple. It basically asks who you are and what do you normally do and what is it that you could possibly do in support of pollinator protections. And we collect those forms, we aggregate them. We have a pretty good list right now. I think it's probably hasn't hit 50 yet, but we do have a good number of pollinator pledges that have been signed already. But what it does is it gives us a leg up when we're ready to implement a new program. We have a ready-made database of organizations and people who have pledged to take action. And then we can dip into that and say, okay, well, let's see who's pledged to do some educational programming. Let's see who's pledged to do some native species plantings. Let's dip into these pledges and see who might be, be thinking about taking action in one of maybe a dozen different disciplines that we've explored. And then we'll reach out to those partners, engage their interests, see what kind of resources they might have. And the whole point being that rather than all these organizations and individuals and municipalities going it alone and trying to create pollinator protections, is that we, the National Heritage Area, can knit like-minded people together for a more regional approach, you know, thereby strengthening not only what they're doing individually, but also to make the whole greater than the sum of its parts. So, and that's working out pretty well. We then, we launched this page last year, our Operation Pollination page, so you can read all about it. There are links to additional, you know, local, federal, national resources here at the bottom in case you want to learn more if you're not familiar with pollinator protections. And once we got this page launched, we then held our very first Pollination Protection Summit in November of last year. And again, I think we had 42 organizations show up and sit with us for a day. You know, we bought coffee and donuts in the morning, we bought lunch at lunchtime, and basically kept them there for a good part of the day. With the whole goal of the day was answer this question: is a regional plan of pollinator protection a good idea? And if so, what does it look like? And as you might expect, with 40 plus organizations in the room, we got a pretty good variety of answers. But post Pollinator Summit, we were able to essentially boil down what I think ended up being about 13 pages of notes of all different disciplines, all different approaches to pollinator protections. And we boiled it down, I think, eventually to maybe 4 approaches that we are probably going to take action on first. And of course, all of this is on hold because of the COVID-19 crisis. It's really set this plan back by at least 6 months or so. So we're still waiting for our partners to signal that they're coming up for air and that we can start to re-engage them on this, because clearly it's taken a backseat to survival for most of them. So, but some of the things that we plan to be working on will be some of the things I've already mentioned, which is education on native species that are particularly pollinator friendly, school programs, municipal programs, outreach to businesses like garden centers and landscapers and people of this sort who may not be aware that their actions have huge impact on the health of pollinators in our region. And I think a little bit of education here to the business community will go a long way to solving that. One additional thing I want to quickly mention, and then I'll be done, is and here are our notes from the summit last November. Some of the themes that popped up and notes about different directions that we might take as a group. Our task this year would have been to synthesize these into maybe 2 or 3 program ideas and then get our partners back together. But as I said, that's on hold for the time being. We hope to get back to it this fall, but we'll see. But one last side note is one of our partners. It's actually the home and gardens of Herman Melville. You know, he wrote Moby Dick among many other works of writing. And his estate at Arrowhead in Pittsfield just got a USDA grant with our support, of course. And their goal is to plant 3.1 acres, actually the North Field. So as you're looking north from Herman Melville's home toward the mountains that inspired Moby Dick, it's the North Field that you're looking across. But basically this USDA grant will allow Arrowhead to basically till everything that's there under, plant probably something, a hardy winter rye or a buckwheat or something for 1 or 2 seasons, and then use a particular type, and they told me exactly how they then turn the soil over and plant wildflowers. But basically they're going to turn the whole North Field into pollinator habitat. in an eco-friendly and indigenous species friendly way. So that's very exciting. We're not involved exactly in the planting part of it, but where we'll get involved will be the educational programming that'll follow, probably some school programming, some interpretive work, maybe doing some virtual, video work or something with them, but very exciting stuff happening in the Upper Housatonic Valley. Thanks for letting me share. Uh-oh, no one
Thank
can
you,
hear me.
Dan. No, it's excellent. Thank you. I love all those examples. So it'd be great if when I send this recording, I can send some PDFs or the links to those documents, because I think those are really helpful for a lot of communities.
Good stuff.
So Brian, we'd love to hear what you guys are doing in MotorCities National Heritage Area. Take it away. And we'll hold questions till the end. Or also you can put questions in the chat. Brian, you might be on mute. Now you're ready. There you go.
Yep.
Great.
Hopefully everyone can see my screen. And greetings everyone from Detroit. Brian Yopp, Director of Programs and Operations for MotorCities National Heritage Area. And you may be asking yourself, as I was asking myself, what is a heritage area whose focus is on industrial history and manufacturing and talking about auto barons and their stories? What do they have to do with pollinators and habitat protection and that sort of thing? And I think we were challenged when we got involved in this, first of all, by our fearless leader, Chris Stein, who challenged all of us to think about what we could do. So at first we were very dismissive of the idea, our mission is this and our focus is this, and our partners really don't mix with that. We'll do the best we can, but we really didn't see a lot of potential in the idea of us being involved in this. However, as it was a visit from Chris to the heritage area, when we were standing on the green roof of Ford's largest complex, the Rouge factory, and those of you who came to the Alliance of Heritage Areas meeting last year visited that factory. We were standing on the roof, and they've got this totally green factory. Ford's CEO, Bill Ford, was very interested in doing as much as he can, realizing that they're an industrial giant and that they're not offsetting their carbon footprint. They want to do as much as they can. And so this green roof was really fascinating and impressive to Chris. And then he looked off the other side of the roof and saw a small little hive out in their field of planning, and realized that they had a beekeeper on site that was also managing a landscape there for Ford Motor Company in the midst of this huge industrial facility, steel smelting and iron ore and all this other thing, that they had this space set aside to manage the beekeeping there. So it really kind of set the ball rolling to say, we didn't realize that existed, but Chris encouraged us to say, if they've done it, then there are probably others who have done it. And maybe you, MotorCities, can be sort of the nexus that brings us all together. So we started our pollinator partnership program with reaching out to those people. Really heritage areas are all about that partnership and that convener role and connecting stories together. So we just shifted that magic over to the pollinator world. And we started a pollinator pledge. This is on our website right now. So there's a section of our site that any of our partners can go to, or anyone can go to and sign up and basically talk about what it is that they can do on the micro level, what they're planning in front of their house, all the way to their communities or clubs or groups that they're involved in, all the way up to a huge level like some of the partners we're going to talk about. But what we opened our eyes to realize is that Ford was doing it, but others were. I encourage all of you to, once you get involved in these things, start to promote it. The best asset we have is our State Department of Natural Resources. This photo is from a pollinator education event that we did in partnership with them. The press came out to cover it, so it got good attention, but really was about educating folks on what was available. So from the DNR, and that's also our executive director, Sean Palmerville-Size, being interviewed on our local news. So they were talking about the efforts that were going into this and what you could do. They run a whole program, so you want to be a beekeeper, and that sort of gets the ball rolling. It's focused on, of course, inviting young people into that world and educating them on it. So this is one of our partners talking to the group of young people about the benefits of it. This is actually Lisa Perez from the U.S. Forest Service. So again, partnership with those who are local to you. She works out of our region. She's part of the Eastern region. So we brought her in and she was happy to share. And there's a young man who's ready to do some real beekeeping. They got an actual hive there on site, and they were really excited to do it. But that kind of got the ball rolling, and us being involved in it, because it brought great attention to the project and showed that we in this urban setting and this dense population in this area where we cover 10,000 square miles and 6 million people, that there are a lot of opportunities for people to become involved in this and a lot of interest in it and a lot of people working on it. So when our friends were coming from the Alliance of National Heritage Areas last year for the annual meeting, we decided to organize an entire panel back at that same site. So we went back to the Ford Rouge factory and organized a panel there to talk about pollinator efforts locally. And this was the team that was assembled there. You see myself, and just introduce you to the folks who are involved in that. Next to me is Brian Peterson from Bees in the D, which is a nonprofit locally in Detroit area that does this sort of work, that works with organizations who want to do everything from educate about the pollinator efforts and their value to install hives and manage hives and things like that. So they're a nonprofit. He's actually a teacher as well. So he's got the direct main vein to educating young people about that. Next to him is Michael Parker, who's from our state Department of Natural Resources, who shared with us a statewide plan and what they've adopted in order to do that. Again, I really encourage that if some equivalent organization in your state has something going like this, you know, whatever their dub, that you work with them and talk about the bigger plan and then try to funnel that down locally. Behind him, this is where the unlikely partnerships happen. That young lady is actually the environmental specialist for Marathon Petroleum, which is an oil company, but Shell and, you know, all those sorts of oil companies, they produce oil, they produce gasoline locally, but they own a huge footprint around their refinery that they wanted to turn into a green buffer and a wildlife habitat, which they have done so successfully. And again, making as much effort as they can to create pollinator habitats there. The gentleman behind her wearing the sharp honeycomb hoodie, which of course you wear a honeycomb hoodie when you're a beekeeper. He is the head of apiary programs at Ford Motor Company. So he is the one that we eventually caught up with and we were inspired by that day. And he shared with us all the things that's going on with Ford, both at that site and globally. When you realize they're a global company, have a lot of assets and a lot of resources that they can connect to, that we're excited to have him on board. And then behind him is Chris Stein, who again is our fearless leader and champion for all things pollinator. So we're encouraged by that. So I'm just going to share a few things that they shared that day briefly. You know, talking about, for instance, the DNR talked about their overall pollinator wildlife plan. And, you know, I'm just going to breeze through these because I'm not him and I'm not going to present his material, but just let you know that they have a sort of raw perspective on what they can be doing with all the acreage across the state, like ours. So even though it's not just our urban area, it's really the expanse of Michigan, and we have a really big agricultural root here beyond our automotive story. So they talk about the huge agriculture areas that could be utilized for this with very little effort. I mean, they have grants and programs that support this, and then the partners are able to plug in and take advantage of it if they work with the DNR, recreational land areas that they also manage. So they take care of a lot, and they also encourage people to really just look at their own backyards, you know, homes that they own and facilities that they have direct control over. You know, think about things you could do like reduce mowing and native species. So, you know, it's really interesting to hear from him on the statewide level, things that they're trickling down to individuals. So I'm just breezing through these, and I'm going to get to one thing that he harped on, which I'll leave the screen up here to say, think about the partners both in the state that I mentioned, but these partners, he also includes folks that are outside of the state, like U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and USDA and the Farmers Bureau, Farm Bureau, people like that who could be involved in this as well. So think beyond just sort of the box that you're in. That's where we were. We were thinking within the box that we operate in, but really needed to think beyond that. Again, working together was key. The Ford Apiary program, I'm just going to show you this because this, again, shows you how it can be done. These are the hives that Chris saw that you see in the picture in the upper left-hand corner. These are the two hives that he saw from the roof of Ford Motor Company that were being kept, and that's the beekeeper that manages those. So just those two hives in the midst of this huge industrial complex inspired us to get started on this program. These are the hives that are at Ford headquarters. They look pretty cool. So not only that, but they're a great sort of feature there. But they're at the company's world headquarters, and there's a small team that works on those locally. So it's really encouraging to see a company like that. Here they are installed in the grass area around Ford headquarters, which is way off in the back corner in the bottom picture. And this kind of shows you the global reach that they have. So I put this slide up just to say that you never know who those partners can affect. And this is the global reach that Ford has. And these are facilities that they have around the world who are supporting this apiary program within Ford Motor Company. So their goal is, again, to continue to educate and support pollinator-friendly habitats, reduce pesticides, and reduce their footprint. When we talk about a company like theirs, it has to be very intentional to reduce their footprint and their effect on this. But they're working at it. So that's the team at Ford Motor Company working on that. And then I mentioned Marathon Gardens. I wanted to show you this. This is the refinery that they operate is in the circle area, and then the green space you see all around that is what they've adopted as a green buffer. Also on this footprint, though it's not outlined, is a park that MotorCities is working on that dedicated to the 1932 Ford Hunger March, which just happens to be in the same area that this is. So it's adjacent to one of our emerging programs and properties. So they're a good neighbor as well for us. So just showing you what they've been working on as they've tried to expand their wildlife plantings and wetlands areas. So they've been really working to solely expand it from 2016, 17, 18 and beyond. And they continue to move forward with some of their plannings. You can see where it started on the left to where it is now on the right. To just show you how, again, how dedicated they are to making sure that back to folks.
Yeah, if everyone could remember to mute their audio, please. Thank you.
And these are just some images of folks on their planning day. These are volunteers from the community and from the petroleum company from Marathon out doing the planning. So again, it shows you the progress that they've made in planning, being intentional about planting native species and developing this land. And installing a few bluebird boxes because they are adorable. And the last one I wanted to talk about was Bees in the D. I don't know if anyone has an organization like this, and if you do, you should contact them right away because this is a group that is tireless in their efforts. They're a nonprofit, as I mentioned, run by a teacher and his partner, and they are the Bryans, the bees that run the D. But they service the entire footprint of folks in between the major partners and the individuals who are planting in their garden. These are folks who need hives in certain areas or request hives in certain areas and request education about it. So they're constantly teaching them about how these things happen. That just is just an example of a little snapshot of our corner of the state and where they have hives located around the region. So they manage quite a bit for a small nonprofit. And they use this to sort of show the radial effect of the hives that they manage and how far out they reach, so you can see their impact locally. But their whole goal is to really make sure that there are safe havens and habitats for all pollinators. That they focus on bees, but all pollinators are their friends. And you can see some of the footprint of what they cover. They work with corporations, they work with convention bureaus and those who are trying to encourage that information to be out there. So commercial institutions, the casinos, the hotels have adopted this. They put them on their rooftops and in their open areas so that they can all be a part of this. And of course, the broader agricultural community, which again, Michigan has quite a bit of. And then I wanted to close it out with sort of an encouraging tale that we put the word out there and we continue to promote this sort of as a background thing. And this, about a month ago, was National Pollinator Week. And we took up the cause and, did the hashtag and social media. We couldn't have many gatherings. In fact, we didn't have any gatherings. But we took up the cause and put it out on social media. And one of our partners, and again, those of you who came to Detroit for the Alliance meeting, went to a place called the Fort McKitt Avenue plant, which was Henry Ford's first factory where he built the famous Model T. It's modest by today's standards, but it's a little engine that could, and it really represents our heritage area. Right across the street from that, this is a line of interpretive signs that we've installed. This is 5 of 300 that we did across the state, but it just happens that 5 of them are right in front of their building. So they had to reinstall those signs this spring, but when we put the pollinator pledge out there, they reached back out to us and said, not only we're going to reinstall the signs, but we wanted to take the time with our volunteers to plant a pollinator garden around the signs so that now you have sort of that element incorporated in, and you see the plant across the street there. So now those who come into the plant are getting a piece of that. They didn't have to. There was nothing to encourage them or incentivize them besides the fact that we had spoken to them about this, and we're looking for everybody to do the best that they can. So the idea here is that every little bit counts, and they were able to do their little bit, and we were really encouraged that they took it upon themselves to install this, and they just sent us the pictures and said it's done, and we signed the pledge. So if anything, my message to everyone today is if you're at all discouraged or deterred by the idea of becoming involved in this Operation Pollination push, the message is you can do it because Detroit said you can do it. We said you can do it. We did not have faith in it when we started. But if we can do it, you can do it, certainly. We took our industrial landscape, we took our footprint and those partners that we serve, and we tapped into them. And I didn't even scratch the surface really with all the stories that we could have unearthed. But we tapped into them. We started with our auto companies and our suppliers and our parts people, and they really answered the call. So I encourage everyone to think about it that way and think about what you could be doing locally, big or small.
Brian, thank you so much for inspiring us. I want to introduce Bonnie from Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Area. She's going to share some of the work that they've been doing in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Take it away, Bonnie.
Yes, so I'm Bonnie from the Blackstone River Valley National Heritage Corridor. We're a bi-state corridor with 14 communities in Mass and 11 in Rhode Island. And is anyone familiar with Whole Foods Market? They created there was a Save the Honeybees campaign started in 2008, and I was the one that started that. So when this Operation Pollination came up, I was very excited because I had a lot of experience with that. Does anybody remember the picture? It was on the cover of Time magazine with the produce department with no produce in it. So what we did is we took the list of produce that honeybees pollinate, and then we removed those from the store and had it photographed. So that's just a little bit of my background. But so here at the corridor, we're excited to launch this program. This is where it lives on our website. And we drafted the resolution, which appears down here, and created.
Bonnie, we're not seeing your screen right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay.
That's okay. And Christian, thank you. He uses that picture of the empty shelves in all of his pollinator presentations.
Yeah. It's very powerful, very illustrative of the impact.
Okay, we're seeing your screen now.
Okay, so this is the National Heritage Corridor's website where the Protect Our Pollinators live. We provide ways to give them tips how to save their pollinators. I'm going to skip over the TV thing. I'll come back to that. So we have our pollinator resolution here, and now people can take the pledge right online. Comes right to my inbox. And we encourage people to share photos. So last year was pretty exciting for Pollinator Week. We did quite a bit, and we got a lot of news stories. So we had a series of 4 events the first year. We worked with a local tea shop, and we had a local beekeeper there, and we sampled some local foods and teas and honey. We did an event at our visitor center in Worcester, and we partnered with the Worcester County Beekeeping Association, which is the oldest beekeeping association in the country. So we packed the visitor center with a really great talk. And we also partnered with Rhode Island College, which actually has a bee education program. They have 4 hives on the campus. And the timing of Pollinator Week last year, the schools were already let out. So we thought about bringing kids to the garden, but all the local schools were already getting out. So I pulled something else out of my hat. And years ago, I had read an article about beekeeping actually being good for veterans for post-traumatic stress disorder. And you might think, well, that doesn't make sense because to some people, bees are scary. But it actually, the beekeeping experience can be very calming. And so anyway, a local woman has a therapeutic center for veterans, and we partnered and we brought these veterans to Rhode Island College and walked them through it, and they were quite inspired. And now a couple of them are successful beekeepers. And we also did a pollinator walk at a local U.S. Army Corps of Engineers property. But fast forward to this year, I'm going to show you some other pictures. I have another slideshow to show you about a garden at a visitor center. This is Ken here. You see, we call him the Bee Whisperer. He's the gentleman that gave the talk at the visitor center. He's a local beekeeping legend. And another woman in our volunteer ranks is Betty Mancucci. So we're really fortunate to have them. So I'm going to jump over to the PowerPoint and tell a little story here. So that's our pollinator proclamation. So this White House here is known as the Captain Wilbur Kelly House Transportation Museum. And is Chris still with us? I guess it's fair to say Chris used to work in the corridor, and he used to live upstairs in this house. So this story really comes full circle. This transportation museum is located within Blackstone River State Park. It's in Lincoln, Rhode Island, the village of Ashton, and it's managed by the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management. So, and the National Park Service, this is Ranger Tyler you see in the picture, it's one of their historic nodes, so they also do programming there. So this Operation Pollination, you can actually see the former garden. Next to the Kelly House was this display garden. They could never grow food or do anything with it because of the prior contamination. So this Operation Pollination really inspired the park rangers to build a garden. So Tyler, who you saw in the picture, set out to build this honeycomb-shaped garden, and within it are different honeycombs. And this all started last year, and it got completed to about this stage late last summer. He was a seasonal ranger, and the plan was to come back this spring and do the planting. Well, we all know that COVID happened, and unfortunately, Ranger Tyler didn't come back on as a seasonal ranger in the spring, and the weeds moved in. And so I raised a question to see, well, could the corridor step in on their behalf and maybe raise some awareness and ask for some donations of plants? So luckily, a local newspaper was writing a story about another project we were working on, actually putting bees at a garden at the Watershed Council. And so in the story, I just suggested if anybody wanted to donate plants, we have this garden. Well, as luck would have it, a woman with the Rhode Island Native Plant Society read it, and they came down and checked it out, measured it, and they agreed to sponsor it. And so what they did is they gave all the plants, over 150 plants are going in this garden, and they brought their own volunteers from the society to come and plant it. And it happened during Pollinator Week, that Friday of Pollinator Week. And so now we have this lovely garden, which we'll be able to interpret to all the people. The amazing thing about this garden is where it is. In the front is the actual canal towpath and the canal, so people are walking by the front of the garden. And in the back, you'll see the bikeway, the Blackstone River Bikeway, and behind that is the river. So it's a very, very popular spot. So we're working on getting some banners out there, and Tyler's already working on some interpretive panels. And so then these are the ladies from the society. I wanted to go back, if I can get back here. I mentioned the Blackstone River Watershed Council also has a pollinator garden that they're working on, and just wanted to, I won't play that, but I can send you the link if you're interested. My husband is actually a beekeeper, and he donated a beehive, and it made, I pitched it to the newspaper, the television station, to see if they wanted to cover it. So they used my actual video footage, and then they were promoting the corridor's pollinator proclamation in it. So that's what wrapped up for us this year during Pollinator Week. So thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Does anyone have any questions? You can type them in the chat and I can read them off, or you can unmute and go ahead and ask some questions.
Bonnie, I had more of a comment or an observation than a question. It was about the veterans connection and the therapeutic beekeeping, because we have a similar program. Michigan State University runs a program called Heroes to Hives, and they're one of the partners who took the Pollinator Pledge and signed up for this, and another way that we've extended our efforts through the Veterans Association. So I wonder maybe if you could expound more about how successful that has been, or, you know, how many people are involved, you know, and maybe others who have it in their state, you know, if something like that exists.
Well, it was, I'm going to do the stop sharing here. It was just it was a one-day thing where we invited veterans to come and do the workshop with the Rhode Island College. And we had about 6 people there. And several of them have gone on to become beekeepers. They really, really loved it. But with COVID this year, we didn't expand on too much. We're not doing any programming this year. Yeah. And our volunteer program is inactive. So we weren't able to continue that this year.
Is that something that you can, I guess, are there more remote programming opportunities, or like when the group came in and volunteered to work in the garden, they scheduled like social distancing and all of that kind of stuff this year when they brought their own plants?
Yeah, yeah, and they brought their own volunteers, yeah.
And Brian, have you, I guess, like you said, your partners made that garden, you know, oftentimes it is the partners taking things forward. And people can still work outside in gardens now, but the slowdown in public programming, did you find, you mentioned using the hashtags and other virtual things. Did you get good feedback from those kind of outreach?
Definitely. I wasn't able to mention, but our local television station actually reached out to us because they saw the activity that we were doing and asked us to put together a piece that they ran that sort of talked about the coordination of all of these partners, of all of our automotive sites, both the big factories and historic homes and all these sites. And so just using that, you know, I don't want to sound like a propaganda whore, so to speak, but if you've done the great work, it's important to, you know, kind of make sure you publicize it too. So it's just as much you do the great work, but then make sure you publicize it as much as you can, because though we're not taking credit for it, it's about the partners, but it is about organizing, and heritage areas are great at that, of bringing people together and convening them under sort of one umbrella. And believe me, it took a little pitch to shift our focus, you know, and talk about this in the same context. But once we started rolling, people got it. They understood that they have an opportunity, they have a landscape that they control, and they can do things. So I think using those sorts of pieces, just images like that, tell the story just as much as being able to bring a bunch of people together. And they were able to do it safely with their small group of volunteers. I could show you the pictures, but they were all out there with their masks on, and, you know, so they were able to do it safely and effectively. So we were encouraged by that.
And I think one thing, Bonnie, you shared about contaminated soil, I think too in MotorCities, like one of the reasons why Ford is doing this huge green roof is to avoid runoff from a highly contaminated site. So it's kind of an interesting positive environmental impact, and your auto industry partners. And have you seen that? Because this is something that people can plant. It's not edible, but it's beneficial for pollinators. Do either Bonnie or Brian or both talk about kind of that contamination impact?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, you're hitting on a subject that is the complication in us getting involved in, is that just as much as we can support and promote that, we do get the pushback that says, well, you're talking about Ford and GM and Chrysler and our energy company, DTE, Detroit Edison Energy. So all of these major, you know, polluters are also signed up to us to be supportive of our pollinator pledge. And then people feel like, well, that's a bit of a, you know, oxymoron to be working with groups that do that. But at the same time, we have to advocate for them and say they're doing what they can do. And that's what we're trying to encourage, is that people do what they can do. And like you said, they were very intentional about positioning them in a way that avoids the runoff, creates the green buffer around, like the Marathon example of the oil refinery is. They wanted to create a buffer around it. Why? Because otherwise, the people who live there would have these complaints and issues about being so close to a refinery. So they bought the property around it, converted it into this wildlife habitat, and are seeing the discernible growth in that every year, that those who follow that are able to see this species is showing back up. You see frogs in the water, that means that this is healthier. So all these things are having this overall cumulative effect that they had to start somewhere. And so us being supportive of them just said that, you know, we are no judge, jury, and executioner, but we can say we're on board with them doing what they can, as opposed to, you know, staying stagnant.
Bonnie, do you want to talk a little about your site too? Because it looks so rural now, but it really is in the middle of a, you know, a very industrial, originally industrial landscape.
Right. I certainly couldn't ask for a better spot to have this educational opportunity to talk about pollinators and the native aspect and promoting, you know, biodiversity. And instead of, you saw the before picture, you know, now we have a nice, attractive landscape for visitors too. Yeah.
Any other questions? Hannah, Blake, do you have a question? Hannah put her question in the chat. She said she's heard of butterfly watching in England. Is it feasible in the US to tie pollinator efforts into tourism efforts through butterfly watching?
Yeah, thanks, Katie. I was mute. So.
Anybody know anything about that?
I mean, I can say that our local zoological society has done that because it's a very, you know, popular topic and you know, great gathering thing. So they have these moments where they bring the butterflies to a certain area and talk about that. So I think that's maybe a way that they're doing it is you know, put it in a bite-sized way, sort of creating this environment where you can come in and interact with the butterflies and sort of this big giant netted tent, and then they talk about their, you know, their process. And even the day that we did that, they did that program with the kids, there were monarch butterflies coming in and out of the garden, so they were able to see it sort of in real life, and they were able to see it in process and understand more about how it goes. I can see Chris now. Chris.
Anybody else with that answer to Hannah? One thing I participated in with my kids, the Native American Museum in DC did a ladybug release. And the goal of releasing the ladybugs was to eat the bugs that can damage the milkweed plant. So they have an organic garden that then they use some of the produce from the organic garden cafeteria at the Native American Museum. And so they release the ladybugs to help the milkweed, which in turn helps the larva for the butterflies. And they explain that whole chain of events, but you have ladybugs crawling all over you and it's fun.
Yeah, I think the whole notion of, you know, our Operation Pollination here is reaching new audiences for this because, you know, the people that are signing the pollinator pledges and a lot of our partners already get it. And so how are we going to have innovative programming that's going to reach this other body of people that can really benefit from this and can really move the dial on making changes like wholesale changes? And that's like, you know, homeowners and, you know, school programs and municipalities, people that can help affect wholesale change. So that's our challenge. It's how do we reach the non-pollinator people? Because we already seem to have them. So I think innovation is going to be the key.
Any other folks want to share their questions, or I can read some things from the chat. Ethan said that he heard Germans and Austrians, come to the Midwestern region of North America for thunderstorm watching, perhaps tying thunderstorms to our pollinator tour could work too. And monarch tagging is big with families and school groups. Tagging the monarchs encourages learning about migratory patterns. You get tags from Monarch Watch through the University of Kansas that Laura shared that. Could you hurt the butterfly by tagging them? I feel like I would hurt them. Anyone know about that? Laura, want to share more about that?
No, it's just a small sticker about the size of a pencil eraser that you put on. I believe it's the left hind wing. Like when you get the tags from the University of Kansas, they have a nice description of where exactly to put the tag and a record sheet that you turn in also. So it's great. A lot of families do it here in Iowa along with the school groups.
Oh, excellent. Maybe that's something we could learn more about and explore. Chris, did you want to share anything, or anyone else? Oh, Anne.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry I was late. I just saw this. I'm Commissioner Anna Hansen, Santa Fe County. I also serve on the Heritage Area Board in the Northern Rio Grande Heritage Area, and I just passed a resolution on pollinators in my county to look at our land use code and to make sure that we're not using pesticides and to educate as many people as possible. And my entire board supported it. I know that the heritage area is also very interested in pollinators, so we're trying to move forward with those issues also. And it's nice to see you, Chris.
You too.
But I'll try and figure out how to share my pollinator resolution with you all. Maybe I can just send it to Chris and he can share it with the group at some point.
Yeah, that would be great.
Thank you for letting me say a few words.
Oh, thank you for your work.
But I have the most beautiful swallowtails and really beautiful bumblebees in my yard, and in northern New Mexico, because we're over 7,000 feet, it's really important to encourage bumblebees because they do much better at a high altitude. So I'm grateful.
Well, I have my Ghost Ranch shirt on from visiting Northern Rio Grande. So that's a thank you.
Yay. Hi, how are you?
Chris, did you want to share a few words?
Sure, I have a few observations to make. First off, Katie and Heather, thank you so much for having this Operation Pollination as a best management practice call. That's really an important effort here for this call. You know, if anybody ever asks anybody, you know, why should a national heritage area get involved with pollinators, like Brian, you know, suggested, just remember the 6 reasons why national heritage areas exist. I mean, I know that each of you has your own congressionally mandated reason for being, and you have management plans that you want to achieve objectives on each year, and that's great, and you all do such a wonderful job with such limited resources. It's pretty amazing. But never forget those 6 reasons why heritage areas exist: of preservation, interpretation, education, recreation, conservation, and appropriately scaled economic development. That's what I tell people, the reason why heritage areas are into this. And I think you can justify going down this path by those 6 reasons. I want to thank the presenters today. Dan, I think what you're doing in the Housatonic Valley is incredible. You are really making this a community project. Brian and Sean from MotorCities, I remember well being up on the roof of the Ford Rouge factory, looking out on Bill Ford's 12-acre green roof of pollinator-friendly plants, and just incredible things already taking place. And it really makes sense for national heritage areas to be a unifying force in the community, so people don't feel like they are doing this by themselves, but they're part of a much bigger effort and can have a greater impact. And Bonnie, it was so nice to see the house where I used to live in the Blackstone Valley, the Kelly House. Thank you for putting that up and mentioning that. And I really like your all your bee paraphernalia behind your behind where you're sitting. That was really some cool stuff. And please thank Devin for me as well. And I see some of the other participants on the call, other executive area, other heritage area executive directors. Thank you for what you and your staff are also doing. A little bit of an update. Of course, COVID has put a damper on lots of things, but as of February 2020, before we got into our current mode of operation, please know that 36 NHA executive directors of the 55 have told me that they want to be involved in Operation Pollination. I just think that's incredible, since this project really started just 3 years ago. when Abraham Lincoln National Heritage Area, Northern Plains National Heritage Area, and MotorCities National Heritage Area all agreed to experiment. And Brian's right, it wasn't easy. It was not easy getting Heritage Area executive directors to agree that we should go into pollinators, especially at a place like Abraham Lincoln or MotorCities, because your missions are so distinct and not about pollinators. But thank you for doing that. I know of at least 12 National Heritage Areas who actually have information on Operation Pollination up on their websites. And anybody who, I've shared that information before with most of you, but anybody who wants that again, I certainly can share that. Maybe I'll send it to you, Katie, if you think it's a good thing to put with this program. I also have some really wonderful news that I received last week. And that is that the international group called Rotary International, which many of you are aware of. Rotary International is 1.2 million strong worldwide in most countries of the world. But anyway, they have these Rotary action groups. And one of these groups is called the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group. And last week, I just got the news that the Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group of the Midwest, which extends from Ontario down to Texas, they have just adopted Operation Pollination as their own project as well. And I couldn't be happier. That's what this project is supposed to be all about. Other people adopting it so they can then do good things for pollinators as well. So they're developing their own website, an Operation Pollination website for Rotary. And once they get that up and running, they will be promoting the Operation Pollination project to Rotary districts and Rotarians between Ontario and Texas. And you know, if they can do it, you know, like if Detroit can do it, you know, you can do it. Well, if they can do it, it can also be done in other Rotary action group areas around the country. And who knows, you know, perhaps we can even make this spread even further than this country. So again, I just want to thank the excellent speakers. You've really informed me and inspired me today to continue on with this project. And I just wish all of you well. Those of you who need any assistance in getting up and running, I am always available to anybody. Just because I work in the Midwest regions of the National Park Service, it doesn't mean that I am not available to help you with your connected conservation or large landscape conservation project. So thank you, Katie, for giving me the opportunity to say a few words.
Great. Well, thank you, Chris. That was inspiring as well. Does anyone else want to share before we wrap up? Anyone else want to share about some of your projects or any other questions? I really appreciate, echo what Chris said, appreciate Bonnie and Dan and Brian for sharing. Really good to see the examples and real creative opportunities and just kind of the depth and breadth of what this program can mean, whether it's veterans or school kids or residents and whole municipalities. So I really appreciate it. I think it is great examples for the whole Heritage Area community and show really how this nationwide program can make a nationwide impact as a collaborative unit from Heritage Areas to Heritage Areas, like 36 or 55. That's really impressive. So thank you all for your hard work. Keep it up. And if anyone has any questions, reach out to our speakers. I'll share their information was shared in the email invitation for today, but I'll share it again with the recording as well. So thank you. Be well. That's us.